Hello world, welcome to the 210th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm broadcasting from the backyard because we are in the middle of an ice storm. It is December 15th, 2010. This is number 210 climate change emergency protest. These are the chickens are very mad at me right now because they're stuck in the coop and they're not too happy campers right now. So we're going to go to what I call the hacienda, this little area built. It's really icy out here. And, pine tree's not liking this at all. Cedar pines do very well in drought and everything. Though I'm going to broadcast this back in here, and hopefully everything will work out well. And, there's an area so you can have a vision out the back while I talk. So I did not mess this up. And there's the beautiful backyard right now. It always looks terrible in the winter, and that's to be expected with things. So right now it is, let's see, it's 32 degrees outside. It is ice, rain. We're going to get snow a little later. So you name it, we got it, other than tornadoes like they're having down south. So, as I said, this 210th climate change emergency broadcast. So right now the United States is experiencing a giant storm throughout the whole United States. And I'll step out for a little bit. It has gone all the way from the Pacific, West Coast, all the way to the East Coast. We've had devastation west to east, north to south, and also just hard weather situations. This is not normal at all. Severe snow in the Rocky Mountains and in the west, measured in feet, not inches. Torrential rains throughout the west. Tornadoes in the south in December, which is highly unusual. You'll get, usually in the spring, you get tornadoes because you get warm air in the south hit by cold air in the north coming down, and that'll generate spin up and lead to tornadoes. And as I said here, temperatures at 32 degrees, so it's too warm above to snow, but it turns the ice on a contact freeze, which is really dangerous for driving, or trees coming down, slightly riskier, trees coming down on my head. Why is this happening? Well, it's a climate change phenomenon. Your weather channels won't say it is or anything like that, but the reason why this is happening across the whole United States now is this system has enough strength to cover the entire United States area, which is huge. It's 3,000 miles by 1,500 miles, or 2,000 miles north to south, somewhere in there. So you have a warmer ocean, heating ocean overall, which holds much more heat, which gives more power to storm systems like this, and it can carry all the way across. As you can tell, there's no wind. Now, some places, ski slopes out west, had wind gusts up to 165 miles an hour, which is severe. Right now, you hear ambulances and fire trucks in the background, meaning either someone's gotten in an accident, or a tree has fallen on a power line, or vice versa, whatever. Who knows what's going on? But this will happen all day long now because of the situation. People are out driving. They shouldn't be in this kind of situation. So you have a warmer ocean, and then you end up, because there's less temperature difference, it's still severe, the temperature difference, but the temperature difference between the equator and the Arctic region is slowing down. Therefore, the jet stream becomes more wavy, okay? It's no longer straight across the country. And with a warmer, wavy jet stream, you get these weird phenomena going on where you can have some severe downpours or tornadoes or anything that goes in between. Drought, you can be stuck in a high pressure for months on end or weeks on end, and then you can be stuck in a wet pattern, which leads to severe flooding, such as they had in Kentucky. So no winds to extreme winds. You can have all that. Warm moisture from the Gulf of Mexico bumps into the cold air from the west coming in, and that leads to tornadoes. That's why they're having them down here in Louisiana, and they're going to have them in Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, all those places down there. And what has happened is that the tornado alley has shifted basically from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, now moved over permanently over to, you can still have tornadoes there too, but you have it more so in this deep south because warm air from the Gulf is supercharging the atmosphere. And this cold air, when it hits, you get these straight line winds all day long, and then all of a sudden, these supercells develop overnight long, and you have these tornadoes that hit at night, which is extremely scary for the people down there. So it's not a good thing. Here, we had cold air overnight, And so the temperature is locked into 30-some degrees, 32 degrees, which is freezing in Fahrenheit. And it makes a contact freeze. It's very beautiful to look at, but it's scary. So tornado, as I said, shifted east. The NBC News last night for the news talking about the tornadoes said that the atmosphere, or not the atmosphere, they said the South has become warmer over the decades. They cannot bring themselves to say about climate change why it's warming. This is a result of climate change because you have a warmer Gulf of Mexico and the atmosphere is warming in general, holds more water vapor, and then you get a situation that develops. You either get these deluges or tornadoes popping up in December. You have, let's see, I was told about Tornado Alley developing in a warmer Gulf of Mexico. So in the year 2000, during COVID, 2020, I'm sorry, not 2000, 2020, 2021, we had less emissions going up, man-made emissions. Even though it was going up at a certain rate, it was going up at a less increasing rate, slightly, not much, because people were locked down at home for 3 months, 4 months a year, and they were telecommuting or not working at all. And, but we had more methane being released in the atmosphere. And that's like, how is that possible? If people aren't working, less CO2, you would think there'd be less heat and everything. No, there's a 10 to 30 year delay between carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and heat catching up. So right now we just keep going up and up and up in carbon dioxide, and the temperatures keep following suit. And what has happened now is we're basically, and they won't admit it, few scientists will, that we are possibly into a runaway methane situation in the permafrost regions, the taiga, places like that, the Arctic regions, for sure. And it's emitting methane. It's not only emitting methane, it's also emitting carbon dioxide, because methane gets emitted when the bacteria does not get a chance to attack the carbon being the carbon being emitted from the atmosphere or from the ground into the atmosphere. Now, if bacteria get to attack the carbon in the ground, then it becomes carbon dioxide. And then also a byproduct also is nitrous oxide, which is an extreme greenhouse gas. Very small parts of it, but it's like 300 times more potent than is methane. Methane is, in the first 2 years, 162 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So either way, it's a bad situation. Methane eventually degrades back down into carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and then disappears altogether, theoretically. So you have a warming environment in the permafrost. You have warmer air. Siberia, for example, was 100 degrees 2 years ago in Siberia, and that means the river water was also warmer, dumping into the Arctic, if you're getting the drift here. So you have a warmer Siberia, which has the permafrost, that melts. You also have warmer rivers going into the Arctic region, which also has methane hydrates down in the shallow seas there, and 90 feet down, and it has the potential of releasing methane as well. So we're into a kind of a runaway situation where it's a feedback loop, and I'll talk about that in a second. You also develop thermokarst lakes. So you get this melting methane and swampy area that develops, and that forms a lower depression in some areas, which forms these thermokarst lakes, which fills with water. It attacks the permafrost even more so because now it's water and not frozen ice, and it causes more thawing, which develops into more thermokarst lakes, which causes more thawing, whether it's shallow or deep lakes. They don't have to be deep lakes to cause a situation where the water just causes more methane to be released. And also, if it's not snow or ice, you have a darkening environment there. It's very dark, and it absorbs the sun's heat rather than reflects it into the atmosphere. So you have the darkening thing. It leads to more heating. More heating leads to either drought situation where you can have fires in the peat bogs or in the taiga and things like that, which also warms up the environment, because when you burn something, it's either carbon dioxide or methane mostly being released from the burning of that stuff, whether it's wood or peat bogs, and that gets released in the atmosphere. And also the pollutants come down and darkens the what was once snow or ice as well, which causes more melt. If you're seeing it's a total feedback loop going on with the whole thing. So the boreal forest that goes around the whole world, there's a huge amount of forest, which is bigger than all the rainforests combined. It's a huge area. It has a huge amount of carbon-rich environment in it, as do the peat bogs. When the peat bogs catch fire, and they create zombie fires, which burns over the winter as well in Siberia. But in the summer, they really get going then because it gets more droughty and also warmer, and it can also cause more fires. So you're getting the feedbacks are something like the melting permafrost leads to more moisture, which leads to more darkening of the permafrost, which leads to less snow and ice, which leads to more heating, which leads to more melting permafrost. So you get a loop going. And the problem with that is that it's out of the hands of the humans at that point. We can do whatever we want, but the permafrost is going to keep melting away. Once ice goes, it tends to keep going, as will the glaciers, as we'll see in the future, that the glaciers are melting at such a rate now, it'll take thousands of years of cold weather to get that back to the situation that it'll slow down and then eventually stop melting into the ocean, leading to higher sea levels. So there's a meteorologist. I really like this channel. It's called Pattern, Pattrn. It's on the internet and it's on our TV. And they do a great coverage of climate change things all the time. I mean, it's just really good stuff. But one of the meteorologists on there, who I really respect, but the person said Europe has done the most to have renewables and things like that, supposedly. And they've done the most to thwart climate change as best as they can, and yet they're suffering one of the most. That's not really true, but they're suffering extremely with climate change. Well, anyone in their right mind would know that climate change does not stop at a border. We're all connected. What happens in the Arctic, as Paul Beckwith said, does not stay in the Arctic. Things that happen up there, permafrost, and why do I care? Well, it heats up the whole environment, which messes up the jet stream, which messes up growing patterns, which causes extreme heating around here. All sorts of spin-offs from that. So everything is related to itself. Everything, everywhere, all at once. We're all related. So the meteorologist was hilarious in saying that. So the question is right now, are we in a climate change emergency or not? And the answer is yes. We're getting feedback loops now that are uncontrolled by humans and can't be controlled. And if we keep on these patterns of continuing to throw carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and it's like, Jim, we're planning on cutting carbon dioxide by half by 2030. That still means we're increasing, but at a decreasing rate. So that doesn't mean we're no longer producing carbon dioxide. It's just by cutting it in half is you're not increasing the carbon dioxide at the full on rate. But if you're going 200 miles an hour towards a brick wall and you slow down to 100 miles an hour, you're still going to have severe contact. And carbon dioxide can stay in the atmosphere for thousands of years. These people say as it rains down and gets out of the atmosphere and washes out. Famous Penn State meteorologist / professor has said that. And that's a total lie. That's not true. Carbon dioxide will stay in the atmosphere up to thousands of years, has the potential to do that. I mean, it continues to heat the environment. And unless we could develop some sort of technology while also reducing our carbon dioxide output to zero, unless we can reduce carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, like these wonderful trees can take care of that, it's going to keep getting worse and worse, and we're not going to be able to control the situation. So, when the president took office in the United States, when the Congress takes office in the United States, when local officials take office in the United States or even statewide, they swear an oath to the Constitution. I promise to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. But the Constitution of the United States is not the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States is protect the people of the United States. That's essentially what the document means. It's not you're protecting the parchment or the words written on it, because if you don't pay attention to it and actually adhere to it, such as the First Amendment, Julian Assange, right of the free press, which is why it was the First Amendment. Freedom of the press was the First Amendment on the Constitution, not right to bear arms, anything like that. Freedom of the press, and that guy's in jail for reporting the truth, and that should not be allowed, and that's another issue besides itself. But the fact that Julian Assange is in jail right now, which is the first part of the Constitution, even though he's not in the United States, but he is in Britain in jail. And it's the same idea around the world, that freedom of the press should be allowed and is sacrosanct in certain countries, such as ours and Great Britain. The fact that he's still in jail leads to the fact that these people are not intent on protecting the Constitution of the United States or whatever document, Magna Carta or whatever you have around the world. It throws in the face that this climate change issue, the people are not intent on protecting the people. They're intent on lining their pockets and going along to get along, going along to get reelected. Whatever the reason is, they're not here or in office to protect you. They're in office to protect their party or continue on the way they're continuing on and not rocking the boat. So they're not doing the job to protect you. The government's not protecting you, and you should be aware of that as to what's happening. Now, the way around that is the obvious choice, and revolution is to have the revolution in the ballot box. But if you have people being eliminated off the voting rolls, as here in the United States, and every person does not get a vote, and there's many types of people that are thrown off the ballot, whether it's ethnicity or jail time or whatever else, they get thrown off the ballot for whatever reason. And you can't get new politicians that way. You're going to be stuck with the same old. And if you keep voting the same, the two parties in this country who are intent on killing you, you're going to get the same. Okay? Until they change their modus operandi, they're going to kill you. That's where we're headed right now. I take people around and to various places, locations in my Prius, and one of my favorite people said, you know, it's the lesser of two evils. My retort to that mentally was to say, we're going to die with that pattern. I mean, you can't keep on this path, and you can't continue on this way. We're on a road to hell, and it's happening now with feedback loops. And if we keep voting the same, getting the same, I'm not saying stop your party altogether. I'm saying change your party, change your attitude, work together as a group. The Republicans, the Democrats in this country are all one. Everyone wants basically the same thing. Get out of your dogma, quit watching your stupid ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox television, and get on the world news, and you'll understand what's happening. Get on the YouTube channel, check what's happening in the world. Get on my Facebook channel, see what's on my Facebook website right now, Jim McHenry. And you can see all the postings I have. You know, I try to stay unpolitical, but the problem is the politics has entered into climate change and is intent on killing us. So Joe Biden, during the campaign 2.5 years ago, said climate change is an existential threat. Well, if it is an existential threat, that means we're at war with it. It's right in your doorstep. It's attacking your family and friends right now. As we're seeing in the United States, you might not know someone who's died of climate change yet, but you will. You might not know someone who's been profoundly affected by climate change, but you will. That's what's coming our way. And I suspect 2023 is the year we all wake up, or maybe not wake up, but they will all feel the effects of climate change. In one form or another, we're going to start feeling these things, and it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And you ask, how can you predict that? It's a matter of physics. It's a matter of physics and chemistry. The more heating you put into the environment, the more potential heating through greenhouse gases and the sun coming in and beating down, the worse the situation is going to get. There is nothing to indicate we're going in the right direction. There's nothing to indicate that your politicians are intent on changing the direction we're headed in. We're headed off the extinction cliff right into hell. And if you got kids, Merry Christmas. If you got kids, you might want to think about changing your thought pattern as to what's going on. This means you right-wingers. This means you centrists, because there aren't any left-wingers left. They're either centrists or right, warmongering. If you're voting for war, that's what you're all about. As I said last week, the budget of the United States, $858 billion is committed to military this year, $37 billion to climate change. $858 to the war machine, $37 billion to climate change. And by the term climate change, $37 billion, I don't know what they're doing. I don't see anything happening. I see no big plans. I see no media coverage. I see no politicians talking about it. So things aren't changing. They're only getting worse. You got people in charge that have no intent on changing the direction we're headed in. And you got to think about what's going on and try to change your party from within. If you want to do a protest about the party, don't go to the opposite party. Go to your own party and see what's happening. And stand in front of their place and protest them because they're not doing the right thing. That doesn't mean you're against the party. That means you're against what their policies are right now. So change your policies within your own party and realize that, have a conversation with someone from the Democrat Party or someone from the Republican Party without the dogmatic BS that y'all do. And start realizing we're in the same boat together. And if we don't work together, we're going to surely die alone. So I'll catch you next week. That'll be climate change talk number 211. Shouldn't be having so many climate change talks. See you later. This should have been solved.